It's 7:02. Chair arrived a minute late. We'll call the meeting to order. Okay. The first item on the agenda is our introductions. Thanks, Dan. On my left,
Dan Haggerty.
Dave Olson.
Glenn Erickson.
Michelle Weil.
Claire Foucault.
And Barbara Mathewson.
Okay. With that said, we have our supervisor's report.
Good evening, Midcoast Council members, members of the community. My name is Carrie Dahlman. I'm here on behalf of the Office of Supervisor Don Horsley. I have a few updates to share this evening, and I'll start with the coronavirus. There are currently 15 reported cases in San Mateo County, and County Health and our public and private partners are taking steps to increase our ability to respond and planning for a sustained response. A few key items that have been done: the Emergency Operations Center has been activated, and they've also put up a 24/7 call center for all non-emergency and non-medical inquiries. The phone number for that is 211. The Emergency Operations Center is also working to identify any county-owned sites to temporarily house people whose needs cannot be met at home, but they do not require hospitalization. I would refer you to the county's website for any additional updates. They put out press releases and all sorts of information, including health updates. That website is cmo.smcgov.org/EOC. I just also wanted to highlight a few recommendations from Dr. Scott Morrow, San Mateo County Health Officer. He recommends all non-essential gatherings should be canceled, postponed, or done remotely, and to use your best judgment as to what is considered non-essential. Those over the age 60 and those with comorbid conditions should avoid gatherings to the extent possible. To stop shaking hands. Also increase the amount of remote or teleworking. I know a lot of companies have done this already. Under all circumstances, stop touching your face, eyes, nose, or mouth with your unwashed hands. And also social distancing, or maintaining at least 6 feet away from other people where possible. A couple of more recent updates is the state of California notified the Emergency Operations Center that of their intent to temporarily house passengers from the Princess cruise ship that docked in Oakland this week. They are currently being temporarily housed in a private hotel in San Carlos, and they're in a controlled environment that is protected and managed by the federal government. And one other press release that was just released today, and it's on the county's EOC website, is the health officer order barring visitors from skilled nursing facilities. Those are all the updates I have on coronavirus for right now from the County of San Mateo. I know it's a ever-evolving situation, so I encourage you to look at the Emergency Operations Center webpage for more information. And on another topic,
Question on that item.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any guidance for public meetings such as this one from the county to bodies such as ours?
There's been a recommendation to, if gatherings or meetings could be done in a virtual format, that would be ideal, but there's no hard and fast guidelines as to what is considered an essential meeting, so they just said to use your best judgment.
Okay. So given consideration to how we might try to comply with that, and that'll come up when we discuss future agendas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be something like a Zoom meeting, or some sort of a conference call or video chat meeting.
Yeah.
That could
I
be
think
an
that
option.
violates the Brown Act.
So, so there are considerations like that, but we'll bring that up under our discussion of future agendas.
Sure. On another note, there was a planning commission meeting today. One of the items had to do with the multimodal trail or parallel trail. The approval by the planning commission consisted of the coastal development permit and adoption of a mitigated negative declaration for the construction of the 0.8 mile long multi-use trail. At this point, my understanding is that once the permitting process is completed, construction would take roughly about 4 months' time. Just to refresh, the multimodal trail is about a 0.86 mile long section on the east side of Highway 1 right-of-way, and that's between Coronado Street and Murata Road in El Granada. I have no new updates on the census at this time, but I've forwarded some clarifying questions to the census team in the Office of Community Affairs. I clarified at the last meeting that census packets will not be sent to P.O. boxes, but that they will be delivered to physical addresses. The County of San Mateo is going to send postcards with information on how to take the census to P.O. boxes.
We got that already.
Okay. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I hadn't, it was like, as of yesterday.
Yeah, I know invitations to complete the census are coming out this month. So I'm still gathering details. I'll provide any updates as they come in. And then for Seton, would you like me to wait for that agenda item?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. And I see the annual allocation arrived. I just wanted to reiterate apologies for the delay in that. It looks like the account was deactivated due to more than a year of inactivity, so I've set a calendar reminder for this coming year so that we'll get the process going much more smoothly. And those are all my updates, if there are any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is.
We have more public comment, we have Harvey.
Oh, Harvey.
And Highway Patrol.
And highway patrol.
I try to make it once in a while.
Thank you, Harvey.
Good evening, Harvey Warback, representing Half Moon Bay City Council. The City Council recently had 3 what we call listening sessions where the public was invited to say what was on his or her mind. They were very informative. We had over 100 people come. We had one that was in Spanish with English translation. We got a 9-page synopsis of what the public had to offer. And guess what? Traffic seemed to be the #1 priority from the public's point of view. I wish we could do more. In any event, the City Council yesterday met to set our priorities prior to the setting the budget. And we came up with 4 priorities that we're going to concentrate on. The first was having to do with affordable housing. And that is the city is going to set up some way, it's not clear exactly how, to offer subsidies for people building ADUs, accessory dwelling units, so that if the landlords are willing to have covenants or rent restrictions to make sure that they're renting in an affordable way for, say, a 10-year period. And like I said, it's all hasn't been worked out yet. But we think it's important to make sure that ADUs are in fact affordable, and we're willing to subsidize that kind of housing to do that. Another priority that the City Council has decided on is we're going to try to implement a ban on the sale of single-use plastics. This is going beyond what the county has decided, that they're going to not allow restaurants to have single-use receptacles. If we really get this going, it will be unusual in that you couldn't walk into Safeway and buy a plastic water bottle. And that would be pretty much unique to any government agency in California. So this is all, as I said, this is just the first pass at what we want to do. But we really want to restrict the use of all single-use plastics. A third priority that we talked about had to do with revitalizing downtown Half Moon Bay. We got a grant to do that, and one of the things we're certainly going to do is what we call Green MacDutra Plaza. If you've been there, you know it's a pretty sterile environment. It really not very welcoming. But we're going to try to make it welcoming. We're going to have it plants, a mural, lawn if possible. There's lots of ideas to make it really much more eco-friendly than it is now. The last priority that we talked about, it has to do with emergency planning and resilience, especially in light of the public safety power shutoffs. We were trying to implement microgrids, battery storage, locations where people in an emergency can take care of power needs and charge your cell phones, that sort of thing. So we're going to, along with Peninsula Clean Energy, trying to implement a resilience strategy, and that's one of the priorities of this City Council. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Question?
Yeah.
The concern I have is the stoplights at Highway 1 and 92.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also 92 at Main Street.
Yeah.
Many lights in the coast side, especially at early hours, you know, they sense if there's a car needing to use a green light to turn or whatever. So the idea is that in order to facilitate maximum flow of traffic, if a car, the controller knows, because there's sensors in the road, the car's sitting there wanting to make a left turn, but yet the light is green for the other direction and there's no cars there. Other controllers in the coast side, they sense that and they prioritize the green lights for where there's cars. Just early on, request that that's looked into, so that, you know, cars don't unnecessarily have to just sit and idle when there's really no reason that the controller can't sense that he wants to move and get going. I think that would help with the eventual traffic buildup by stopping cars unnecessarily.
You should talk to our traffic engineer, Ray Rosado. He's the guy that would implement such a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will. I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
No,
so
I'm aware of this problem.
Okay,
Have you communicated to the traffic engineer? Is there any feedback on that, or is it kind of stalled at his level?
I haven't talked about it explicitly about this, but
yeah,
Okay.
you're welcome to do that.
okay, thank you.
Judy?
Any other council questions? Okay. Judy, you had a question?
Thank you.
Sure.
For the improvement in Main Street, I hope that the council is taking into consideration older adults. There's long been a recommendation that we need seating along Main Street. people who live, in the senior housing cannot walk all the way up to the stores. They need to be able to rest along the way. Also, I hope you'll be working with Samtrans to consider creating a better place for people to wait for the bus on Main Street. No place to sit anywhere in the house. If you've noticed all of the Adirondack chairs around Seal Cove, for instance, people are so desperate for a place to sit. They put their own chairs out there at the bus stops, and there are no covers on the bus stops.
I think both of those points are well taken, and we're aware of that, and I'm sure that we will have more seating and covered places to wait for Samtrans.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can make a quick statement. I've been attending the Reimagine Samtrans, their strategic planning. And unfortunately for that goal, they have prioritized putting in amenities like that and only on the routes with the highest traffic. And none of the coastal routes have high traffics. So unfortunately, we're still, I mean, every time they've come out here, they've recognized the problem. But like a bus shelter costs $250,000 according to that. So they're not likely to put them in out here. Now, the city could perhaps work with them.
Yeah, yeah.
But Samtrans themselves is unlikely.
We could make a lot of noise, too.
Yeah, it always helps to make noise.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you.
Let's see, any other?
Highway Patrol.
Oh, so highway, okay. Highway Patrol? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Ruiz. I'm with the California Highway Patrol. I'm assigned to the Redwood City office, which covers this portion of Highway 1 from just south of Devil's Slide all the way down to the county line. I'm just coming by again just to let you guys know I'm part of the Special Enforcement Unit for the Redwood City office. So my main goal is to address all the traffic problems and any traffic issues in the unincorporated areas of San Mateo County. Also up here, West Menlo Park, all the areas that we have. If you guys have any specific complaints, if there's any issues that are ongoing or something that needs to be addressed, you guys can always contact our office. Our office number is 650-369-6261, and just ask for a supervisor and have them file a traffic complaint, and that will then get sent down to me, so then I can go and address the issues that are going on. Importance of that is to be specific on sort of the times that these violations are occurring and where they're happening, so I know the best time to be out there for these specific violations that I can keep my eye out on. You can also always shoot me an email. My email is aruiz@chp.ca.gov, and I generally check my email all the time, so not afraid to take an email and answer a question. And with that, that's all. If you guys have any questions, we're down to 3 officers on the Special Enforcement Unit. 1 did transfer out, so we're down 1, and we're trying to get another one recruited up. So, but I'll take any questions if you have them.
So your coverage is the entire unincorporated area of the county?
Yeah. So for me particularly on the enforcement unit, I cover all of the unincorporated areas of San Mateo County, and we have some a little bit in Santa Clara County as well. So we cover all the way down to Cupertino, Mountain View, all the way up to Millbrae, and then that's our San Francisco CHP office covers everything north of there.
And down to the Santa Cruz County border?
Yeah, so yeah, we cover all the way down to Santa Cruz. So I've worked in the area for 18 years, so I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the areas around here. So
Questions from the council?
One
Okay.
thing. I just noticed this, and I was gonna talk to DPW about it, but since CHP worked with DPW on this, I'll mention it to you as well. On Sunshine Valley Road, when they did the project to put in the center line and the radar speed signs, that definitely helped the traffic through there. I just noticed that the radar speed sign that is northbound, just outside of Moss Beach, seems to have gone dead. So I'll tell DPW about it.
Okay.
But
I just
figured
wanna
I'd
write it
mention
down
to
just so
you,
I know.
Just because that was such a successful partnership.
it's on the northbound direction, you said?
Yeah, northbound, so just after you leave Appledore, maybe a quarter mile after you leave Appledore.
Any other questions from the council? Dan?
Yeah, I brought this up a number of times. My concern is with these cars that have their driver and passenger windows tinted so much that you can't see, you can't, the concern is that if you have to, whether you're on a bicycle, crossing an intersection, or if you're in a car and you're making a turn, you cannot actually see if the driver acknowledges that you're there. It's, nobody wants to walk in front of a car unless they know that the driver sees them. There's some kind of a signal. I understand it's, apparently it's a low priority kind of a thing. It's widespread, it's increasing, it seems to be exponentially. I see, even professional vehicles, even I think some government vehicles. So it seems to be something that is clearly ignored, and I'd like to see, I don't know, I'll talk to state senator.
So, I mean, it's a violation of the vehicle code, first and foremost. So now it gets into putting how much enforcement goes into that. And sometimes you have to weigh some of those things. Again, like I said, it's not that it's not a safety issue. It is a safety issue for sure. Does it get stopped all the time compared to speeding vehicles? Probably not as much. But it's just, that's sort of the thing is you're on patrol, and if you see it, you stop it. But you can't get, just like you can't get all the speeders, you can't get all the people that are in violation of tinted windows too. I do make the stops. I cite the violation pretty regularly. But, I think some people, A, they may not know, or B, they try to get it to a level where it's not as dark, and they think that's okay. And a lot of these companies will tell people, well, this is a percentage that's allowable, and when the percentage is 0, you're not allowed to have any. So there's a combination of things. It does get enforced, I will tell you that. It does get enforced. Does it get enforced to make a huge impact and prevent people from doing it? I don't know for sure. But it's something that does get enforced by myself, and I know that officers do it as well.
Information question there. So if Dan were to observe such a car and take its license plate down and send that in, do you have to deal with them on the road, or can you take them off?
So it's an infraction violation, so very low-level crime. I mean, we can generally send letters to people for, just like we'll send letters for, let's say, there's a vehicle that's speeding. It wasn't witnessed by an officer, but it's been reported multiple times by other people. We'll occasionally send letters to people to let them know, hey, this vehicle was seen, in violation of the speed laws at this location. It's something that I'd have to inquire with my commander to see if we would actually do that for mechanical violations. I know we have done it for just sort of registration. We do it for registration, which is not particularly a speeding violation, but that's something I'd have to address with my captain. I can talk to him about that, whether we would do something like that. So, I can come to the next meeting and sort of refresh you on that one. So.
Any other questions from the council? Any questions from our audience? Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hope to see you again.
Have a good evening.
Okay. No more government officials.
Announcements, or?
I know it's there. Any announcements from the council or others?
I have 3. One is the Shore to Shore Conference, if it's still going to happen, is taking place on March 31st at the College of San Mateo. And this is a county-run symposium about water issues, primarily erosion-type issues in the county. It's in the morning of the 31st. Also, Earth Day on 4/25. I'm mentioning that now because the Pacific Beach Coalition is trying to put together beach cleanups. And if you have an area that you would like to see cleaned up and want to sponsor that, they will work with you to make that one of their projects. Last thing is that apparently the Samtrans people have decided not to continue the on-demand bus service in Pacifica.
Did you have any information as to why?
No?
It was a one-year trial, and
Oh.
apparently there was not enough, I'm guessing, not enough demand to extend it.
Okay.
I'll try and find out.
Any other announcements? Dan?
I'll announce that I recently found the second pedestrian underpass in Pacifica. The first one is underneath by the golf course, just the southern end of the golf course. The second one is as you're going up the hill towards Skyline, Manor's behind you. You're almost at you're taking the exit off to Skyline. There's a little ramp over to get you from Highway 1 to Skyline, and the underpass is right at that location, connecting the neighborhood there to get to the bus stop, to catch the bus stop. Underpass.
Are you talking about on?
I'm
actually-
telling you, you walk under the road, it's an underpass.
Is
It's
it
a
actually
concrete-
on Skyline? Is that what you're saying?
It's halfway up the hill.
It, like I said, if you're on Highway 1 going up the hill and you're taking the Skyline exit, it's underneath that exit. So, the bus will go up Highway 1 and then it'll pull off just right there. It won't get on the Skyline, it'll continue going. So it's just the underpass is underneath that little exit ramp.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
And neighbors say that it's working fine. Yes.
I didn't know about that.
So there's 3.
There's another one.
Okay, well, we're gonna find that. A little help from
So
some
you're gonna
friends.
tell us, or is this an Easter egg?
This is a taunt.
Okay,
He wants me to work harder.
okay. Okay, thanks. Any other announcements? Okay, we have next consent agenda, one item on it.
Public comment?
There you go, public comment it is. Okay, yes, one public comment there in the consent agenda. Greg?
So I don't know if I should apologize for my appearance, but I'm married to a nurse who also has a master's in public health and a minor in epidemiology. And she advises me after the Chinese posting 2 days ago about the airborne nature of COVID-19. It lasts 30 minutes in the air and has infected people up to 15 feet away, according to the Chinese. So that brings me to the point that you anticipated excellently, which is the conduct of these meetings in an enclosed space going forward. And I want to encourage you to consider Zoom, come on, help me out, Google has the chat thing.
Hangout.
Yeah, Hangout and, Skype and so forth. But I think there may be another issue. Well, and on that, on the technological side, you might need a screen to display people calling in. You might need instant messaging for people to do things like I'm doing right now. Okay, submit comments. But I also suggest that it's going to be hard to get meaningful public comment and participation for the next few months. At least it's going to be suppressed. And so to that end, I would request that you ask for extensions on the review and comment periods on a whole manner of things that are before the council and the county. And I think this applies broadly countywide, not just to us. Because otherwise, there's going to be a lot of silence where there really probably isn't intending to be silence. So these things are a pain, by the way. I haven't worn this since what was that fire, the campfire? It fogs up your glasses, so I don't know how people are going to wear these regularly, but there you go.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Any other public comment? Okay. Next on the consent agenda, we have one item, the minutes for February 26th. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll move we approve the minutes of February 26th.
Second, anything?
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded, all in favor? This is approving the minutes on the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Passed 6-0. Okay. We're now moving to the regular agenda. Out of consideration for a request, we're moving item C forward to the first position. And that's an update on the Seton Medical Center. We had Claire Toutant had gone. We have Carrie Dahlman was also going to speak to this, so I asked her to move it here. Would you like her to go first?
No, I think I'd like Judy to go first.
Okay.
I'd like to introduce Judy Macias, who has really been most
So
Spirited.
I don't have any real objection to doing this, but if we're changing the agenda, we should be voting on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Proposed as a change to move item C to the first position.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Moved and seconded, okay, continue. Claire.
Judy Macias has basically spearheaded a lot of the interest in the Seton Coast Side future on the coast. She's a retired community relations person for Seton, and is the president of the Village of the Coast Side, which offers support for older people on the coast side to lead independent lives. And maybe you can bring us up to date.
I should tell you that I was a supporter of the hospital from the day it opened in the early 1970s, and I attended the open house. I still remember the swimming pool in the back. Dr. George Goldthorpe opened it. And
Just one clarification.
yes.
Do we consider Seton Coastside and Seton Hospital as a single entity, both from a business standpoint of what's being discussed now?
Well, they are certainly under the same, under the same corporate identity, but they would have some separate licensing, but very, very closely allied. And the other hospital, which has been part of the deal, by the way, is in Southern California, St. Francis Hospital. There are only 3 hospitals left that are being managed by Verity Health. But just to go back to my experience, I was the first president of the Community Advisory Board when the Daughters of Charity bought the hospital, and Dolores Mullen of City of Half Moon Bay was on it, and Bev Cunha and lots of other people. And we worked to bring the daughters into the hospital, to upgrade the hospital in many, many different ways. And it was very, very well done for many years. And I worked for both Seton and Seton Coastside. So what's been going on is very complicated, and I don't know every date and every corporate name and every detail, and you probably don't care. But what it's come down to is that the management company, Verity Health, is actually part of a much larger conglomerate, and is owned overall by Dr. Patrick something Schoon, who is a multi-millionaire who owns the LA Warriors and the LA Times. And he promised many, many things. So the physicians up at Seton, and I've just heard them talk about this at meetings, were very, very impressed and very much in favor. P.S. Nothing has come through. And Dr. Schoon wants to sell the hospital. Negotiations someone came forward, and that sale was approved by the Attorney General, Claire, and Chuton and I attended that meeting last year. And the sale was approved, but negotiations have been going on interminably since then. And what is the problem? No one knows. It's all secret. They have, signed all kinds of non-disclosure agreements. There are 2 other buyers out there. One is a group of physicians in Southern California who have several hospitals, and then another corporation, but the public sentiment from the hospital doesn't seem to be in favor. So where it stands now, and I heard about the county decision, is, well, it's in bankruptcy court. So any day, the bankruptcy judge can say, it's over, it's going now. And state law says that there has to be 90 days notice to close the hospitals. But in fact, they closed St. Vincent's in Los Angeles within 2 or 3 days. And the problems will be, not only will we lose our standby emergency services, and our x-ray and our PT, and most important, our lab services. We only have a couple of hours a day where you can have your blood drawn on the coast, and Seton Coastside is it. But 113 patients will have no place to go. There are very few Medi-Cal beds in all of San Mateo County. I think there's just one facility in Burlingame. And it is thought that it could take years to place some of these patients. and there would be all over the state of California, so. But what is gonna happen to us? If Supervisor Horsley can break Seton Coastside out of the deal, and preserve the hospital for the coastside, my guess is that the county would like the skilled nursing beds, because they need them, but they would lose a lot of money on it, because they would lose half the reimbursement that the Seton is currently getting, because it's different licensing. And if they could hold on to provide at least urgent care services for us. I doubt if they would want to sponsor the full-blown emergency room. It's been losing money for the last 25 years now. I think that's the best that we could probably hope for. That's all I know. Any questions?
Now, when you say that, is that if this overall deal didn't go through?
If
which
the
would take
overall deal
everything?
doesn't go through, and I have my doubts about what, I mean, I don't know, but $20 million is kind of like 3 months operations losses, I think, of these two hospitals, so I don't know what's gonna happen. You know,
Okay.
a little bit doubtful.
Okay, so you brought that to attention. Claire, what else would you like to?
Let's hear what Ellie has to say, and then maybe we can discuss what action we might want to take or entertain questions.
Yeah, my only update was to speak to the Board of Supervisors' decision from the special meeting yesterday afternoon for those that were unable to attend or tune in online. The Board of Supervisors voted 4-1 with Supervisor Dave Pine dissenting to provide $20 million in county funds with a request for the Health Plan of San Mateo to contribute $10 million of this amount. The funds will be secured with property that is Seton Coastside, and the funds are to be paid at a rate of $5 million per year over 4 years, beginning at sale closed. So that's my summary of the Board of Supervisors' decision.
So then Don is the one who put that stipulation forward, and that's basically intended to be in a position to try to secure Seton Coastside if the overall deal craters?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Is that what you mean by the money being secured by property at Seton Coastside? I didn't quite follow that.
So the funds will be secured, and that was through property, yes.
They're gonna sell the property or put it up as collateral or what?
Essentially, if the buyer defaults, then the county takes the property.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay,
Or potentially takes it.
okay.
There was also something in the news about using a parking lot at Seton for affordable housing as part of the deal?
I think that idea was floated, but it was ultimately not adopted.
Okay.
Yeah. For those who don't know where the upper parking lot is, from there all the way down to Sunshine Valley Road, that whole grove of trees is all owned by the same.
There was this big Seton.
Do you know how many acres it is?
It's about the same size as the main parcel.
Is it?
And I think some of the properties owned by the Archdiocese too, wasn't necessarily part of the hospital.
Well, they have hospital buildings on it.
I'm getting confused as to which location we're talking about.
The upper parking lot and then
At which facility?
Seton Coastside.
Okay.
So, Claire, did you see anything coming out of here that would point toward asking the council to write a letter, not today, obviously, but to consider that, or is this just informational?
I think it's mostly informational, but I'm open to suggestions from Judy or from you or from the community as to if there are things that we could do.
Greg, you raised your hand at one point.
Well, question, suggestion, with the exacerbated need for testing for the virus that's going to emerge, I would hate to see this facility not get some share of business.
They don't have any lab testing facilities.
Right.
Not for something like
But they
coronavirus.
could be provided with
They can
them.
draw blood.
They could be provided with them, or they could just be a site where the samples are collected. And that could be a revenue opportunity, and certainly, I think, going to be a need.
Okay.
I have a question.
Barbara?
Could you explain the difference between standby emergency room and an emergency room?
Judy, could you come up to
24
the micro, do you mind
Oh,
coming
sorry.
up so we catch it on the video?
Sure. There is no 24-hour physician on duty. Yeah.
Okay, so there's not always a doctor there? Is that-
They could be sleeping. It could be in the building, but sleeping, yeah, but would be awakened, basically. Yeah. Can I just make one more comment about response to the Board of Supervisors? There has been a huge public outcry by the employees and the physicians and the community in Daly City, and it's been very muted here on the coast. I have put many next-door messages out there and just spoken to everyone I can, but I think a public response, especially from both bodies, the City Council and Midcoast Community Council, would be fantastic.
So you are requesting we consider that?
I am requesting that, yes.
So, Claire, do you want to take a lead there to look into that?
We've in the past written 2 letters, basically, I think, to the Board of Supervisors, urging them to settle this and to keep the facilities open for the community. Would you envision that it would be useful for us to do yet another letter?
I think that the letter should consider the possibility of that deal not working. So encouraging that we keep ancillary services here on the coast. Yes, in case the county assumes ownership.
Maybe Half Moon Bay could buy it again like they did in 1980.
So, Claire?
Yeah.
So is that
Half Moon
helpful?
Bay,
We're still talking.
okay, actually was in a community partnership to assume the hospital before the Dogs of Charity bought it. Yeah, so it was called Half Moon Bay Community Hospital.
And then they
But
turned around and
to-
almost immediately sold it to the.
To keep this specific, although we've written letters in the past on this round,
Yes.
you're saying it would probably be, recommend we consider writing a letter, but give particular attention to the retention of services there
Yes.
in this letter.
Yes.
So I could, with maybe some help, put together something for our
Happy to work
next
with you on
meeting.
that. That's one person. Is anybody else interested? Okay, well, we got 2 then.
Who was the other one?
Me.
Oh, okay,
And if you're looking for community help, Chris Johnson might be willing to help. He
okay.
feels
Yeah,
very
he
strongly
feels
about
strongly
that.
about it.
Okay,
Okay, so I'll put something together for the next meeting.
okay, thanks, Claire.
Thank you.
Okay, yes.
I hope, Carl May, Moss Beach, I hope everybody's keeping in mind that San Mateo County has a large hospital over in San Mateo. This, much larger, I think, even than Seton up in Daly City. At least it's where I go for Lyme disease tests and all sorts of other public health as well as other tests. So it seems to me that this could be a satellite of the county general hospital.
Is this
and
what
not,
is this name, County, San Mateo County, what's the name of it, the hospital?
it used to be Choke, but I think they've changed the name to San Mateo
San Mateo
County.
County Medical Center.
Yeah, yeah, but it would not, this would not necessarily require a whole separate management team and everything else if it's operated as a satellite operation of the general hospital. So that might make it more lucrative.
Okay, it's a thing to consider, thanks. Any other comments from the audience on this? Okay. Okay, so Claire, you have the lead, and we'll see what we might bring back next time.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is Connect the Coast Side, and this is an update on the plans for review of Connect the Coast Side as I've received by discussions with Joe and Claire. So for that, Dave, could you put up that slide I sent to you? And I'm going to circulate to the council what's going to go up on a slide. 1, 2, 3. Pass those down if you would. And 4, and there are a few that could be circulated to the audience. slide is the only one I need from this. Okay. So I'm just gonna run through what's here as a quick thumbnail and then take any questions to the best I can. Basically, on January 15th of this year, the county provided an update for Connect the Coast Side that was considered the first draft being released to the public. An earlier one had been reviewed by a technical advisory team. So the plan presented here, as I said, it is tentative, but basically it aims toward a first meeting on the coast. And these, I've also in green, these are the dates of our formal MCC meetings, just for reference. So basically on the 15th of April, which is a Wednesday, an evening briefing meeting would be held as a full presentation of Connect the Coast Side to the community. That would either be at El Granada or Farallon View Elementary. 4 days later, on Sunday in the afternoon, would be a second workshop that is a reprise of the first one, that is just doing it again. This would be held at the other elementary school. The base presentations are the same, but the presumption is that the one held at Farallon View would emphasize the roadways in Montera and Moss Beach, and the one in El Granada would emphasize here in El Granada, the harbor down to Miramar. So then, following that, the county would assemble notes from those meetings and basically add that to the document already out, because the base document is still the January 15th version. And then the MCC has an opportunity to convene a study session. Study session would be either on a weekend afternoon or in an evening, most likely either here or in a larger facility, depending on the size, but this is more of an intensive one. We try to lay out all the maps in detail and walk through, so that would, so that would be the study session. Coming off of that, the county would basically roll that into a new draft one. So this is a different draft than the one that's been out to date, reflecting changes, and bring that forward to the MCC for consideration at the second meeting in May. And this is a meeting with the target of asking whether we would recommend support approval of that CTC, that draft. With that discussion done under our belt, there's then about 1 month later, the Planning Commission would have a study session and look at what they refer to as the new draft 2, which is pretty close to the final draft. And then ultimately down the road, so that gets us to basically a study session by the Planning Commission. In speaking further with Joe about this, there's two considerations to keep in mind as he's framed this. One is after the Planning Commission approves it, then any comments from there would come forward, and then it would go to the Board of Supervisors for their review and approval, and that would likely be 1 or 2 months later. At this point, you now have the Connect the Coast Side embodying the Comprehensive Transportation Management Plan that is deemed complete by the county and its Board of Supervisors. At this point, the process that ensues is that that's sent to the Coastal Commission, and the Coastal Commission and the county review that, not so much for an approval of it as to see what are the elements in the CTMP that require amendments to the LCP. So in other words, that would, and obviously we need to have that completed, and then those parties would then determine what amendments are required, and then that process would be ultimately submitted for certification to the Coastal Commission. So the terminology used is they're not certifying the Comprehensive Transportation Management Plan itself, the last formal action is that the approval by the supervisors, but with the commission to determine what's the impact on the LCP and look at those changes. This, as I said, it's a first cut to lay out specific meetings and put it in order. We can take any questions or comments on this, but it's pretty high level, I recognize. Dave?
I'm sort of surprised that anybody's anticipating that there would be an LCP amendment as a result of this. Since the whole reason to do it was to meet the requirements of the previous
They
LCP
recognize,
amendment.
the most particular thing they can point to is that they recommend, rather than LOS, which is in the LCP, to go with the delay index as a formal measure.
You actually
that
think
would
that might,
require an
they actually think that might require an LCP amendment?
Yes.
Wow, I'm shocked.
So, I don't think the two parties have talked about it, and so,
Yeah, because I don't think delay index versus LOS is baked into the coastal plan or the LCP anymore.
well, I have no expertise to answer the question. I'm just telling you what the perspective provided was.
Would it be possible to zoom in on that? It's kind of hard to read, probably it's not coming up on
Try.
the camera too well, especially the dates and the meetings and,
Do you have the paper in front of you, Dan? You can read that as well.
I do not.
Pass that down to Dan.
More important for the
Just
community,
pass it down.
more important for the community. And in addition, I'd like to request, Len, that, you know, be a little bit more specific about, you know, maybe, you know, I see you have Connect the Coast Side on the heading, but you have a number of things that are, you know, regular meetings and, is it free to say that everything is not highlighted in green? Is it Connect the Coast Side, issue?
No,
Is
these
that-
are different activities. This is a
Yeah.
rough draft of a plan, calling out particular meetings or things going on.
I'm
It's
just
not-
I'm just requesting that it's easier to understand your,
The only thing the green is
So
for is
so
to
it's
see.
all
what-
connect the coastline. It's just the timeline.
the
Some are
green-
MCC and some are county.
No, but the green items are when we have our formally scheduled dates, which may not be involved in the review, but I just wanted to see where those are.
And can you go over, please, once again, the first two,
On the 15th.
one's gonna be your plans for what's gonna be, how it's gonna be held, what,
Those are full presentations to the community of Connect the Coast Side, one held at El
one
Dorado.
issue meeting, just that,
Right. These are
Okay.
special meetings, just to present the document, take comments,
okay?
have materials out.
And you're expecting both of them to be outside of this?
But they're both county
They're
meetings,
they're
they're
both,
not.
they've been conducted with the county, I mean, we're in a supporting role, you might say.
But where are they
No, those-
physically gonna, where
The
will,
multipurpose of the two schools that I listed, Fair Longview and El Granada.
okay, you have them scheduled already?
They're in the process of scheduling those. I'm not scheduling, but
The
they're
county
putting
is.
this up there because they're trying to schedule those facilities.
Okay, so one or the other? Fair to say?
Both. One is on one day, the other is on the other day.
Okay, okay.
Can I ask, I mean, what's the likelihood that we'll actually move forward with these meetings, given that large gatherings are
Well,
probably gonna be
se-
advised
a
against?
separate discussion going on relates to the coronavirus.
Yeah,
And so, basically, the county is totally aware of that. They're working both to schedule those and then trying to understand whether that means defer, look at an alternate approach.
Well, I would certainly approve deferring it,
yeah, I don't think it's
under
smart.
these
to-
So I don't,
circumstances.
I mean, basically, in terms of a decision, I don't think we could certainly point to that, but I think they're well aware of that, and I think for a meeting of this size, they believe it would be policy determined above our head. I mean, I would-
And given past attendance, these wouldn't be regarded as large gatherings.
Maybe, maybe not.
Well,
They're
the-
There's
definitely
been
not
some
going to
large
be-
gatherings on the traffic issue.
yeah, no, I think we understand it, and I mean, certainly make that aware of them, I don't, point taken, but
Well, I just want to
They're
be
not our
clear,
meetings anyway, they're the county's meetings.
I just want to be clear on my position.
Yeah.
okay, very good, thank you. I mean, it's good, I don't, other than knowing it's there, and I think we would all agree with that. And so, and I don't think if they felt it was, a risk or the meeting wouldn't be effective, they would do
Well,
it.
I just think that if we're, I mean, we know, this is a month away, basically, we know that people are already wary of meeting. I mean, you know, we're talking later about potentially doing video conferences for our meetings, which are much smaller. I think that even if the county decided to go forward and hold these meetings on these dates, unless by some miracle coronavirus has disappeared by then, I don't think people are, the community's not gonna have their say, which is, I think, our issue.
Right.
They're not gonna be able, they're not gonna be as willing to attend these as they would be in a under normal circumstances. So I would strongly urge the county to consider rescheduling the meetings,
Right.
postponing the meetings, and potentially pushing back their overall date. Of course, we want public input as a part of this process.
Sure. So I think the general statement is to push it back until it's no longer an issue. Sounds good, yeah.
Can I ask that this be posted with the agenda so that I don't have to say all of this in the minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically,
I'll post this on the website.
yeah.
So Len, you will communicate to Joe that there's at least 2 council members and
No,
community members that are
I think
concerned with
that's
this?
really the sense of the meeting as a whole, that we would want it deferred till the coronavirus wasn't an issue in public.
I'm not in favor of deferring it.
Well, okay,
It's been 4 years.
to me, I think the majority of the people probably, let me finish. The majority of the people feel that way, but I think ultimately, it's
So
not a
call for a
decision.
vote, don't just say you think the majority.
Okay, how many people on the council feel we should ask them to defer it till the coronavirus is no longer an issue for public meetings? How many think we should go ahead regardless?
I think it's their meeting, I don't think we
Yeah.
need to say
No,
anything.
I've already said that. I think people wanted a statement from us, so I tried to state it.
So, so just express there's community and council concern.
Okay. Okay, anything else on the schedule for questions?
I didn't hear a confirmation. You will communicate that to Joe?
Right, the
Okay,
community
great.
was concerned, absolutely. Okay, that's this item. Okay, next, in looking at the environmental reviews involved with Cypress Point, I was trying to understand what the ground rules were as we review both what the county prepares and then what kind of consideration it gets from the Coastal Commission. And at this point, I only can report that as I can determine from those discussions, they aren't really completely on the same page. And so I'm just continuing to look at that further. I mean, basically, I've had both the candid discussions with the planning department and with Coastal Commission staff. They've given perspectives that don't match up, I believe, and so I'm looking to get further information before I come back on that. Any other comments on that point?
Is there anything we as a community can do?
Well, I think the community is basically the community was strong in expressing at our last meeting that they would really like to see an environmental review done as part of the submission by the county for the Cypress Point to the Planning Commission. The county's position is that their requirement is to assemble technical information that supports environmental considerations. My point back to them was there were 400 pages of that. It was very difficult, to sort through it and even determine how to comment on it. And the Coastal Commission seemed to have more the view that assembling the information and making a statement about environmental review was the responsibility of the county first, and they would comment on that, but that's as far as I've got. So basically, I want to have something that we can look at to decide when they aim toward the next meeting of the Planning Commission, whether there's more we can usefully say. Okay, question?
Comment?
Go ahead, bring it up.
So, actually, this kind of ties in with the Seton Coast side. I just have a concern with the Cypress Point now with the possible closing of Seton Coast side. I mean, it affects the entire community, but you're talking about now going to 100% affordable housing, which you will have no tax base. The current LCP that has basically 65-35 affordable housing, you at least, if you put in some type of housing other than rental, you could actually get tax dollars to help fund or put towards what you're going to need for Seton Coast side should the county want to acquire it.
Understand.
I'm just concerned that they're going forward with a project of this size with the fact that there may be no health care for the very people who are there, who are low income to begin with. I mean, it's concerning. It should be concerning for everybody. And so I just wanted to put that out there that,
Okay,
you know.
thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
I'm
Claire?
trying to figure out exactly how to phrase what we just decided
I've had
on Cypress Point.
discussions with both county planning and with the coastal commission staff about environmental review, and I don't have anything sufficiently concrete to report back other than what I said.
Okay, that's clear.
Okay. Okay. Now then, the Moss Beach reopening celebration, yet another public gathering.
Okay, thank you. We are planning on April 18th, a reopening of the playground in Moss Beach. Is it open yet? Do you
No.
know?
I don't think so.
I
Not
saw
last I
signs.
drove by this weekend, it was
Still not open. Okay, it looks like it's pretty much completed. But on April 18th, we're gonna have a barbecue that is gonna be hosted by the Parks Department. They're gonna supply all the food for that. Then cookies, coffee, juice. We'd like to do a scavenger hunt. We have some T-shirts from the last gathering, celebration when it opened about 10 years ago, I guess. And they're actually pretty cool, but there's not a lot of them, so we may.
Have an anniversary edition or something?
Get some, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, they're cool. I'll bring one to the next meeting. So on Tuesday, we're meeting with the ranger, Carrie, her name?
And Debbie and me and Carla.
Carla, that. And I'll have more information after that. We'll figure out the rest of what we're gonna do, but that's pretty much it. We have, CERT is gonna have a table, CAL FIRE will bring a fire truck by. Friends of Farallon View are interested. We're gonna try to get a hold of the, I think Michelle was gonna try to get a hold of the Mothers Club and Boy Scouts to see if they wanna have some sort of display or
Display,
something.
yeah. And is that also an event that's affected by overall policies on meetings, or as an outdoor meeting, is it less restricted?
I don't know.
We haven't really touched on that.
Yeah.
So that's something we'll bring back to our planning team and we'll revisit, definitely as we walk through and as we get closer to the event. But
Yeah.
it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from council? Claire?
Are Girl Scouts still separate from Boy Scouts? If they are, could we have them both?
Yeah, I didn't even know we had a Girl Scout
They
troop
separate?
in Moss Beach.
On Moss
Oh,
Beach,
yeah.
maybe not?
I don't know.
Yes, they are still separate.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Audience, any questions on this event? Okay. That takes care of the Moss Beach reopening, so
No
thank you,
questions,
Barbara.
Dan? I'm disappointed.
Excuse me. The mum's the word. Okay.
You got other things to
Moving
talk
on,
about?
moving on to the.
We'll be
next-
there, my best.
Okay, moving on to the next item, the Midcoast survey, that's that's over to Michelle and to Carrie, so Michelle?
Yeah, so, as part of the project that we're doing with Common Knowledge, and most of you guys know about that, the goal of that project is to gather feedback from the community and increase the MCC's presence within the community, so conversation goes both ways. One of the things we've talked about at previous meetings is doing a survey of community members. It's a part of the overall project of Common Knowledge, which, other things that we're considering doing are doing like pop-up events at post offices and different locations. But a survey is something that I know I've been talking about for a long time. The goal of this would be to be able to send the survey out. It would be posted on a number of different channels. So on the MCC's website, out through our social channels, potentially working with local media to get it out through potentially Coastside Buzz and Half Moon Bay Review's website, and to gather feedback from the members of the community on it's actually somewhat broad, but topics are, are somewhat focused on mobility and transportation, but also asking like what other topics are important to people. So a draft of the survey has already been created. I think the members of the council all have access to that. If not, the link is in this document. And we're not going to go over the actual, the actual survey here tonight, but what the goal of this is to really get everyone's buy-in on what, on doing this survey. One thing I'll say is that, even we've been talking about coronavirus here a lot tonight. This is something that can be done, and we can still gather feedback electronically. There will be no physical interaction. So even if we are limited in terms of like the pop-up events and other things that we do, the larger community gatherings, this still enables us to move forward with this project and start gathering feedback, over the internet.
So with a link to it, or you or someone else looking for us to step through the survey and then get feedback, or just
I think
look
the
at it?
subcommittee, or not subcommittee, but the group, the three of, anyone on the council is welcome
Yes,
to five.
you should.
What do you mean?
You should go through the survey.
Everyone on the council is welcome to go through the survey and I guess provide feedback to me directly. I can gather the different,
Yeah, well,
feedback?
I have some feedback and some questions.
Okay.
Okay.
and then I know we're talking about having a call with a group of three of us who are specifically working on this project, along with the county and Common Knowledge, to go over in more detail. In terms of timeline, the goal would be to gather feedback and get, basically finalize the survey by the end of this week, or I guess it could probably go into the beginning of next week. The goal is to release the survey next week, the week of March 16th. And then we would get interim results the week of April 6th. So we have an MCC meeting on the 8th. We could have a presentation of initial results there. The anticipated date that the survey would close would be either April 10th or 13th, so that.
Boy, that's a really tight timeline.
Okay, well, let's get through here. Go ahead.
Okay. Carrie, did you want to add? Or sorry, Ellie,
That's
did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything to add, except that we welcome any feedback, questions, and input. This is a draft survey right now, and so we want to make sure that we collect all of your input. You can send it to Michelle or me. I'm the one that actually has the ability to get into the Survey Monkey to update it. And I guess the other thing that I would just highlight for your consideration this evening is that it's sort of a proposal inviting the MCC to co-sponsor the survey with the county, which is part of why we're very interested in co-creating the actual questions that are asked to make sure that they reflect helpful information that you would like to gather from residents.
So, I guess what I'd like to suggest is that if you would send out on email to everybody on the council the link.
Uh-huh.
And
We
then,
already have it. It was in the document.
Okay, but for the council members in reply, I think it's best that you send your feedback to Ellie, because if we begin to send it into a committee of three and add more to it,
Okay.
it raises, you can
I'm with you.
funnel it back, but I think, anyway, I know you're
Sure.
both, will be
Yeah,
working
I'll-
closely together.
I'll email you all the link this evening, and I look forward to suggestions that you have.
Great.
Are we gonna get the results after this? Like, we'll see what people commented and
Yeah,
Oh.
we'll
yeah,
send them?
we would be able to export from SurveyMonkey kind of graphs or charts that display what the responses were, and of course the comments. It is an anonymous survey. There is a question where we ask for those who are interested in signing up for a potential newsletter type communication in the future, they can add their email there, so maybe we would just remove that section. But I think there's a way that we can
It would be best
just,
to have it separate,
Yeah.
just the way people.
but it's anonymous, so we'll definitely be able to get you all the comments so you can have an idea.
And how's this gonna go out to people?
Well, so on page 2 of the memo, it talks it has a few ideas, kind of middle of the page. The 5 bullets, that it could go out in the first newsletter edition that goes out. It would be posted on county websites as well as the MCC website. It could be promoted through local media, Half Moon Bay Review, Coastside Buzz. Of course, this is a draft plan, so we look to you all as members of the Midcoast community to share the survey with your networks and other local community leaders that would have email lists that they could share the survey with to get it to as many people as possible. We could send it out via Nextdoor and any other ideas.
So in
that you
terms
have.
of our publicity, I guess, Michelle, you'd be the point of person relative to both our website and Nextdoor. things like that.
That's correct.
It's gonna go out through the counties next door though, right?
Yeah, we can send
Yeah.
it through the counties next door.
Because I think people would pay more attention to.
It should be
Yes,
both.
it should be both, yeah. I mean, we don't have an official next door, so it'd be
Right,
me
yeah.
posting it as myself,
Right.
and hopefully, that would get some traction, but it would be helpful if the county could post it
Different
on this.
people follow different mechanisms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we'd post it on our Facebook page, on our website, we'd try to get it published in the other publications.
Okay. Claire?
The description of what the MCC's buy-in is in the middle of the second page. Do we need to formally agree with this, or do we just have a sense that we're
I
doing
think we
it?
should vote on
I
it.
think it would be a formal vote. Okay. But we're
I'll-
just having discussion.
I'll move that the MCC co-sponsor this survey.
Second.
Good, okay. We'll continue the discussion now, both at the council level, and then after that, we'll take a break and we have comments from the public. So, I tell you, why don't we just go around, we'll start, well, Dave, you're ready to go.
Yeah, so a couple of things. The survey the survey coverage is good. I took it. It took me, I would say, 8-9 minutes, and I take those things all the time, so I do them rapidly. So I would guess most people are going to be more on the 15 to 20 minutes, which is getting a bit long. Part of the reason it took so long is it's like, hey, let's use every possible way a SurveyMonkey has of asking a question. Please, choose fewer ways of asking the questions. Don't use drop-downs here and 1 through N here and multiple choice here, and, surveys should be written to be as consistent as they possibly can, given the question. Survey results are, if it's just answers to questions, that's got some use, but what's really useful is the data analysis of, what age breakdown did we have? Did people under 35 answer one way, people over 35 another, and all of that? So if we're not doing the data analysis, I don't think the surveys will be doing. And the data analysis is going to take a week or two, bare minimum. And I think that the community ought to have at least 3 weeks to respond after we announce it.
One other thing that I'll add is if you feel like there's some questions that could be removed,
No,
or if
I actually
there's.
thought the questions were all good. It was
Okay.
just, they're all asked in different ways, sliders and buttons and drawdowns, and it's just like, that's not really necessary.
Okay,
Be
yeah.
consistent,
I'll,
where possible.
yeah, I'll do
We
that.
can try and edit fast like that.
Sure.
But okay, great. Any other questions? Does any?
Yes.
Yeah?
So all along, I've been advocating for a transparent process here. Is there any reason that we could not have had a sample survey on our website so that the community?
Yeah.
It
Because
would be confusing.
We want people to take the survey, not just review the survey. Everyone will have a chance to see the survey when they take it. But I don't think we want people going in and reviewing the survey and not taking it, and then not taking it then later.
That's why we're restricting review like this to ourselves.
And why is that?
So
Because there's a lot riding
Dan,
on
let me
the
finish.
results.
Dan, they need informed comment on the review, and we have appropriate subset to do it, I believe. But as we're pointing out, once the review is done, you want everybody who takes it to basically start afresh. So we won't be able to do that, we still do it, but basically, the community has the best process to review it, and then they take it.
I think that community members that are interested in this process should be able to see it.
Well, I think the appropriate way for surveys is, I believe, doing it this way. That'd be my thought, but I understand what you're saying.
And,
Dan,
question about this.
I would just say if there's any, like a person or two in specific that you think would be helpful to have just an extra pair of eyes, feel free to connect them with me tonight or first thing tomorrow, and I'd be happy to share the link with them if they want to provide feedback. I think that would be okay.
It's just, it's the way you do surveys. You have a very small number of people reviewing the survey.
Well, I disagree that that's the best way to handle it. I got a question about the survey being anonymous. So, I mean, how do we know who is participating in the survey?
You don't.
Well, the first question of the survey asks what your connection to the Midcoast is. So by having that question, we would be able to parse out what, for the folks that live on the Midcoast, what their responses are. For the folks that work on the Midcoast, we could separate their responses. For people who visit the Midcoast, we would be able to separate their responses out if the council wanted to prioritize, for certain questions or all of the questions, responses from people who live or work on the Midcoast. But, if the council prefers to have a non-anonymous survey, that's.
It should absolutely be anonymous.
Yeah, people shouldn't be required to ever enter their emails or names to take a survey. We want unbiased feedback.
We also want accurate feedback. So how do we know that people that don't live here are participating?
You can sort of tell by the way the questions are answered. That's one of the reasons I asked about data
Sort of
analysis.
tell.
So,
That's not good enough for me.
So Dan, this is, as the memo says, this is not a scientific survey. We're not trying to get an accurate sampling of all the residents, workers, and visitors to the Midcoast. We're trying to get a feeling for priorities, concerns, et cetera. So there's no way you can jigger the survey. Somebody could, yes, I have 18 email addresses. I could take the survey 18 times.
Well, we might want to
But I'm not
restrict it
going
by
to do
IP. You can with SurveyMonkey restrict it so that you can only take it once from each IP
Yeah.
address.
For the test,
Yes, but almost all of us don't have fixed IP addresses these days.
For the test, I turned off
That's
that
all right.
setting so that you could run
Take it
through it a
multiple
couple times.
Yes.
And it's fine.
If someone really, really wants their voice to be heard, in theory, they could go on different devices or reset their IPs and take it multiple times. I think we'll be able to tell if that's happening.
Okay.
So this is the first phase of what I expect to be a number of surveys.
Yeah.
This is not gonna be the only one survey, so I'm interested in setting a fair and transparent process so that everybody in the community understands how this is going to be played out. And the first one should be a model, so that down the road, maybe a more pressing or more impactful survey with impactful results
Okay.
would be handled the same way, in a fair and open process that can in some way be verified that it wasn't, a robot.
So this is not the intent of this process.
Well,
I'm not saying your idea is wrong. I'm just saying that's a different process than everything we've been talking about. And it's
this
not
is
like,
part of the whole process.
it's not like we're hiding anything. We're not tricking anybody on questions. We're not saying this is the answer from the community. It's similar to what El Grano Parks did. It's similar to what we did with Measure G when we went around and talked to people. It's not a scientific sample. It's a way to gauge the community feeling.
Look, I certainly don't want to feel like the troublemaker on the council, but I would like to hear from each and every council member tonight. what does transparency mean to you? And is it even important? Can, would the council members like to
Okay, that's
answer
what
that?
you'd like, but hold on. I still, before we do that, I want to get comments from the public.
So you don't want?
No, I said I'll come back to that, but I'd like to see if, any comments from the public.
Has there been thought about mailers
Dan?
to identify?
Dan?
Well, I'm not finished.
Let the public get a chance.
I have another question here. Get it
Okay,
written down.
go.
Yeah, so mailers is an option. I mean, it's always an option. I think we could mail the survey link out to folks on a postcard of some sort. I think especially in the case of the, in lieu of community workshops, it's always another opportunity to get input through survey or so.
Okay.
Mailers is definitely an option. Of course, it comes with a cost, because there'd be a cost to mail each individual postcard. But, we thought the goal of this effort is really to reach a broad cross-section of the people who live and work on the coast side through all of your networks and through Nextdoor and through websites to simply gather input on the high priority topics of mobility and to identify other topics of interest that might be topics that could be surveyed on in the future. Also to gauge interest in a Midcoast newsletter and what types of topics folks might want to read about. So it's a way of, listening to the public to know what topics they want to hear about.
So I think the mailers may be a good idea as long as they're not, as long as they're not designed to look like junk mail and just be thrown away.
Okay.
Okay. From the public, Greg, you had a slip.
Greg Yeagas, Montera, and I've used SurveyMonkey and similar tools for, over a decade in business contexts, marketing typically, customer service satisfaction surveys and so forth. That's a tough one. I support the idea in general. I do not understand the approach you're taking, but part of that is because for some reason you didn't attach to an agenda packet like they do at the water board meetings, all the materials that define, like Dave is saying, it's not the purpose. Well, what is the purpose and what are the mechanisms? I am concerned about an anonymous survey, but I got to listen to what the purpose is. I'm used to registering by email or checking by IP addresses, and of course the disadvantage of an IP address is if there's multiple people in the household, they can only vote once. So there's a bunch of wrinkles here that need to be discussed. I would like to see it. I am sure there are a dozen other people I know who would like to see what's in this survey beforehand. And part of the reason, in all honesty, is because when Horsley said, well, we hired Common Knowledge because I want to resolve the housing problem on the coast, I think there's a certain bias that people are afraid of. All right, so we'd kind of like to see what the survey is before the survey goes out and makes suggestions. But certainly we would like a transparent process, to use your term. I would also like to see that nice schedule you had put together, Len. I mean, why can't there be an agenda packet that is posted with the agenda, just like there are in the water board meetings, so we can see all this stuff in advance and make more informed comments?
Let me step in on that. Both of those, well, in the case of the survey, it was developed in process, and this memo didn't come to us until today.
Okay.
In place of the dates, which was not the firm fixed formal schedule, but trying to get information from the county about what they were thinking of for the schedule, I concluded those discussions at about 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay, understood.
And I feel that's an appropriate way to do it. That's different than saying, this is it, this is the schedule, let's truly understand.
Understand.
Okay.
But I think the community will have concerns about the design of the survey and what type of registration or lack thereof. I do see the issue of trying to get visitors. I would also like to see what Lisa Ketchum has to say on behalf of the Pillar Ridge folks.
She's reviewed it.
Well, there you go. Why haven't the rest of us got a chance to see it?
Well,
Thanks.
Join the council. There you go. Okay, anybody else? Yes, Ann?
I have a question, actually, about the survey, because I know you're saying it's mainly for residents and people who live here on the coast. I guess then I was wondering, if you're differentiating for those people who are visitors, are you going to use their data separately? Because the concerns that the people who live here may be very different from people who visit.
Definitely. So the first question, as Ellie said, was on the survey is, do you live do you work, do you live and work, or do you visit the Midcoast? We also have we have a demographic, we have one question at the end of the survey about age. I also want to add additional demographic questions. The purpose of that is to allow us to segment the survey in a number of different ways, so we can look at what only residents have to say, and probably weigh that information more heavily than what visitors have to say, or potentially, it basically asking those questions in the survey allows us to see what's important to different subgroups of the community, and just take, as Dave said, like, the analysis is the most important part. So, getting those questions into the survey allows us to then look at it at the end and say what's important to different groups of people. Asking it this, we're going to also be offering the survey in both English and Spanish. So asking, a question at the beginning of which language you prefer to take the survey in, and then, taking the survey in that language helps us also see, maybe the Spanish speakers have been underrepresented at community meetings, potentially allows us to see if their feelings are similar to the other, the rest of the community. So it just allows us to look at it in a lot of different ways, and we can decide, the data will be presented publicly at a meeting, and we can decide what ways we want to look at it and what's important to different members of the community.
Thank you.
Is that, yeah.
Okay, I think we'll close public comment. So basically, we have a motion before us, and I think, Dan, you're also requesting, I think it's a comment by individuals at the level of, you referred to transparency, but I guess, qualitatively, the survey as a whole as well. Is that what you're looking for?
The whole the process of common knowledge. My question to the council members are, transparency of this process. What does it mean to you, and is it important to you?
Okay, we're talking about the survey now, not something.
Well,
I'm talking about the whole
Dan's asking a wider
process.
question.
Okay, so that's, the next time that comes before us as a whole process is on the April 8th meeting?
You're gonna stop this from getting answered? Is that what you're
No, I'm just trying to clarify.
What's happening April 18th?
April 8th is the next time we'll put a discussion.
This is an element of the process.
I know, and it's one step to execute.
So you're not gonna offer council members to answer the question?
No, I
We've
are.
discussed it before.
I'm just sort of stating what we're trying to speak to.
Okay.
This is about the survey. Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, answering a question about transparency is not something you come up with an answer to on 30 seconds thought. But the common knowledge process, to me, has been quite transparent. It's been presented here in public meetings, videoed. The discussions about the survey are part of that. Transparency does not, to me, mean every single thing you're working on is in the public view before you give it to the public. It means it gets to the public in a timely fashion, in a way that they can act on. I don't know of a single government body anywhere that as soon as they start to work on everything, gives it all to the public.
So we'll take that as your answer.
Yeah.
Well,
So Barbara?
Are we talking about Dan's topic, or are we talking about the motion on the floor?
The motion on the floor is to co-sponsor the survey,
Yeah.
but in the process, you can speak to any concerns you might have. Dan asked specifically about what you referred to as transparency.
And you don't have to answer
Yeah,
Dan's
you don't have
question
to
if you
answer
don't want
it
to.
I get where Dan's coming from. I'm confused within the council here. We're supposed to be a subcommittee. The first I heard of anything since the last meeting was an email that Carrie sent. Then you send Michelle a letter saying, take the lead, and we feel, or I feel, like I've been left out of it. So am I questioning the transparency? Yes, I am. But I like the survey. I think it's a good thing. Do I understand, do I still understand common knowledge? Nope, I don't. But I like the survey and I'm anxious to see the results.
I pretty much agree with Dave in terms of his comments, and I'm excited about the survey. I think the more information we have, the better. And it sounds like it's being designed by people who pretty much know what they're doing, and I'm in support of it.
Yeah, I didn't find out about the survey any earlier than you did. I saw it on the agenda that went out, and then we got that email. So at that point, I reviewed it. And having had a career where I've done surveys for a living, I used to work for the Nielsen Company. It's actually a really well-written survey. I think there are a lot of open-ended questions, and so it's going to take people time to do it if they really want to think about their answers. But I think that the feedback that we're going to get is really nice. And I see transparency not as letting everyone see a survey before it goes out, but the idea of the survey is to encourage transparency, in my opinion. We want to know what the community thinks. We want to hear from people that maybe don't show up to these meetings, people who can't for whatever reason. And I think that transparency is about being clear to the public about what we learned from the survey, not having the public help us co-write it.
So as a background on this point, because I understand that as it came forward over the last 4 days, it did have some confusion with it. On Friday, as I was collecting the information for this, 2 members of the county who are part of their overall larger team, but they're working on Connect the Coast side, provided me with a draft survey and said they were interested in getting feedback for it. I brought it back. It turned out that on the weekend, neither Michelle and Susan Clark, who was sort of the Connect the Coast side person, were available. One had family issues, one was on vacation. So I moved forward, and then as we moved into Monday and Tuesday, additional material came forward. Now at this point, Ellie, can't quite see you. If you stand, could you clarify what your position is now? I understand you've shifted a bit.
Yeah, so I, since November, have been working from the county manager's office. I'm in the budget, policy, and performance division. And one of the assignments that I have, in addition to helping to prepare the county's overall budget, is to assist with the coast-side outreach and engagement effort, which includes helping to facilitate the survey. I think having attended the MCC meetings and other Midcoast events over the last 4 years will bring helpful insight and background to collaborating with you all on this project.
Okay, thank you. So at the last meeting where we discussed this, we had our 3-person committee, and the takeaway I had from that was Barbara had as an activity focus the Moss Beach reopening activity. Michelle had expressed interest in surveys, and that seemed to focus both she's spoken to before and had it. And Dan had a concern with transparency. We've also looked at from a standpoint of where to house information about this on our website and discussed this with Lisa, and I think we have a pretty good idea of how we'll position it there as well. So this meeting, that's basically background on how the survey came to be before us here and receiving this final information that we got today or looking at it. I think both, I'm glad to see Ellie back, and she's been our aide for many years, and I think she's well positioned. I have contact. Basically, my role in this has been, you'd say, at the level of contact with Peggy Jensen, who's the overall senior person in the county working with it, to answer questions and do it, but not trying to get directly responsible for any of those activities. The survey came to me, as I said, Friday, just somewhat by happenstance, but Michelle and I were able to get in touch by today. So that's why it's here. But the consideration now is really whether to go ahead and support the survey. I'm supportive of it, and I think the process, well, it got here isn't, you know, I would certainly have been happier, let's say, to post it last Friday, but that version has been superseded, and I understand they're trying to work fast as well. And in terms of executing it, the kind of information we're after, as Davis pointed out, is really general purpose and, you know, speaks for itself. I'm not concerned that it is, you know, been constructed in any way that looks, you know, other than what the information is trying to gather. Barbara, you have a question you're looking?
Ellie, did Common Knowledge write this survey? Did Susan write this survey, or did you do the questions?
The questions were initially drafted by Common Knowledge, and the county took them and reviewed them and worked with other community partners, including Lisa Ketchum, we put the questions developed into SurveyMonkey system. That's what I did. And then worked with Lisa to take an initial review, and then sent it to the subcommittee for review in the SurveyMonkey format for comments. And at this point, we're really looking for comments from all the council members to make sure that the survey is asking questions that are helpful and that it's not confusing. Or if there's questions that should be removed or questions that should be added, we're open to those suggestions as well. We want to work with you.
And the newsletter, who would be writing the newsletter?
The newsletter, that's a good question. I think Carrie has been the point person for drafting the initial newsletter. Some of the questions, as you may have seen on the survey, ask folks not only for their email to sign up for the newsletter, but also for ideas on topics that they would like to hear about. And so the thought was learning through the survey, what are the hot topics that people want to hear about that could be incorporated into the newsletter. But yeah, Carrie would be drafting the initial draft, and I think also really excited and open to working with the council to incorporate, make sure that the content is relevant, and yeah.
Another question on that, actually. Have we identified a system that we would use to send out the newsletter, and would that be something that the county uses, or would we create that ourselves?
Through Supervisor Horsley's office, we do have an account with MailChimp. And then archives could be posted anywhere from the county's website, MCC's website, anywhere desired, really. But that's still open to suggestions as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Are we ready to vote? The vote on proposal we have before us in the motion, is to co-sponsor this with the county and move forward. Now, we'll go last round of comments. We'll start with you, Dan.
So on this survey, well, first of all, I'm not a survey expert. Okay, some of you may know a lot more about how it works and how you know that it's going to be accurate information. I think that it should be, how it works should be explained to the council members and the public. One thing I have here is on the Connect the Coast side, it says here, it's a community-based transportation plan. Well, that implies that it's already finished. It's really a process. It's in process. So I think that's misleading, and I think it should be changed.
Okay. I can do that.
And as far as the newsletter, now that's a whole nother discussion, because
Yeah, we're not on the newsletter, we're on the survey.
what's in the survey? Hello?
Well, and the questions in the survey are meant to gauge folks, residents' interest in, would you like to see a newsletter? And doesn't necessarily mean it will or will not move forward. It's just simply getting more information from the residents that you represent on what their interests are and what they might be, how they want to hear those.
And can I add to that? We have 0 emails on our email list right now. We have an ability to send out our agendas through a Google service that we don't actually see the emails for. So part of this.
I do.
Oh, you do? Can we send?
I'm the owner of the list.
Okay, so maybe we do have a list.
It's only 67 people.
Okay,
And
so
a bunch of them
that's
are
better than
other
0.
organizations.
The point I'm trying to make is that if we want to move, if we do ever want to move forward with a newsletter, this is a good opportunity to collect email addresses that could then be on the list of people that the newsletter would be sent to. I would hate to pass up that opportunity now. There's other ways that we can collect email addresses in the future, but we should always be working to collect people's email addresses so that we can build that list. And if we should then do a newsletter in the future, we would have a starting point.
Thank you. So Ellie, If there is a large input showing interest on a newsletter,
Mhm.
then of course, there will be a lot of pressure to start a newsletter, right?
Yeah,
We were
well-
saying earlier that, really it's insignificant that we're asking, we're just trying to get a feel for, but if for some reason it comes back, then now we're gonna have a lot, stronger reason to start a newsletter.
Yeah, and county
This is
staff, including Carrie, is interested and able to assist with moving forward with providing a newsletter to the coastside residents. And so, you know, we understand that MCC doesn't have their own dedicated staff, but I sort of would imagine, sort of similar to a city council, working with city staff, that county staff could work with MCC council.
Okay.
So this would be a newsletter from the county directly to the community members?
Well, I
Or-
think that's not something that's been determined. I think it's up for discussion. If it's something that the MCC is interested in leading and taking on and pushing out to the community, I think that's completely an option. I think this is just gauging interest, and then maybe one of the next conversations or agenda items that the MCC could discuss is whether or not you're all interested in, and what role you'd like to play when it comes to newsletter
So with regard to
communication.
this question, it's basically an initial assessment of interest in the newsletter.
Yeah.
And then other things would follow if there was interest.
Yeah, and I think the other question's asking for what types of topics would you like to
Well-
hear about? Our hope is that we can find out what those hot topics are so that people are more likely to open their email or however they receive the information, that we're addressing their needs and interests.
Thank you. Good. Do you have more, Dan?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we table this vote until, common knowledge in the county can really,
Okay, put that forward,
explain
hold it.
to the, council and the community
Go.
exactly how, the survey.
Okay,
will-
so your request
As far as
is,
anonymous, how they're gonna,
Dan,
how it's gonna be, accountable.
Dan, your request is to table the motion, right?
Yes.
Dave, you're our parliamentarian, do we vote this directly?
No, you,
You have to get a second.
second?
Motion to table.
I'm not going to support it.
No, I'm saying,
Is there a second?
basically,
There needs to be a
If there's
second.
no second, it dies.
We haven't asked for a second yet.
no, I'm just, Dan's made the motion to table it. Is there a second? No second, the motion dies. Okay. We'll move. Any more comments?
Well, I think that the community and myself should, be able to understand.
Okay, I understand, we're moving to the question now, so,
You just asked me if I had any more comments and you cut me off.
go ahead.
So, that's my comment. I feel that, all of the community members should understand completely how, it's gonna work, and as well as the community members.
Okay,
So that's my comment, and so I will be, voting no.
okay. Dave,
Voting no
done?
for me.
I would, before I say that, I don't have big problems with the survey itself.
Thank you. I think a lot of us feel that way too.
Okay?
Mhm.
It's just that, I think that I was the first one to ask for transparency. I think that a little bit more should be given. And so by voting yes just approves,
Right.
this method moving forward. And I just said what I feel.
Okay. Barbara? Claire?
Nothing?
Nothing.
Michelle? Okay, so this is a vote to approve to sponsor and move forward with the survey. All those in favor? All opposed? Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is applicants. For that, I have another handout. Yes. Now we take it down. So we have had, wait, gave everything away. 5 applicants for the open position. By the way, I know we have one of the applicants here, Greg.
Yeah.
Is there any other applicant who happens to be here? And you are?
Ed Love.
Okay, thank you. Greetings, Ed. Anyway, we have on my handout here a list of the 5 applicants, which town they're from, which city, and also an email I sent to them this morning. What I wanted to do now is just sort of step through the process of the review as I've outlined it, to take comments before I go further. The overall objective is to have our meeting next time, which will be on the 24th, to be our interview session with the applicants. After this, I've already sent them a greeting. After this meeting, I will basically send to the council members the application material the applicants submitted, which is their statement and further information about it, so you'll all receive that. I'm just gonna do basically a follow-up call with each person just to see if they have questions and, sort of to help set them up for the meeting. And then on the meeting itself, from the experience we had before, I think we need a fairly clear process with multiple applicants on both how to allocate the time as well as the voting process. So I'll step through what I put here, but this is open for comment. We need time for opening statements. I put 5 minutes here. That, you may think of that as long, but basically each candidate would give an opening statement. Then, in taking questions from the council with the 6 council members and 5 applicants, I was thinking at a maximum, if we had 1 question per council member for the applicants, I think we could cover different areas of interest. Any others? That's basically how I propose to conduct the meeting. Any comments or questions on that?
I think,
Go ahead.
Maybe we
Are
should
you
go
gonna
around.
have a subcommittee interview separately?
I did not propose to do that. The time is relatively short and there's a lot of applicants. The concern I have on a subcommittee interview is that, I'm doing as chair really just to orient them to and answer their questions. I think if you get committees interviewing, you have sort of an unweighted process unless everybody does it with everybody. So I'm interested, if you have an interest in doing it, how many people would?
not for a
Well, I'd
second.
like to know I don't know who,
Well,
I only
we
know
have their
one person on this list.
Yeah, we'll have their applications and you'll get that tonight. Then the question is whether beyond the meeting itself, anybody wants further direct contact by phone or.
I think, I certainly have expressed this in my social media postings, but anybody wants to ask me any questions whatsoever, they're more than willing to contact me as well.
Yeah.
I won't reach out, but they're more than willing to ask me.
That's probably true for all of us.
Yeah, just point it's there. Okay.
I would say if we're gonna ask 1 question each, that I would suggest we all, by the end of next week from today, let's say, send the question to you, so that we don't have 5 people asking the same question. And you can, if you see 2 questions that you think are the same, you can tell those 2 people, one of you change.
Okay,
I don't like that.
makes good sense. What's that?
I don't particularly like that, because I would like a little more leeway in the meeting to be able to ask what I want, because things
Yeah.
might come up.
Well, I'm not saying you have to stay with it, I'm just saying if we're gonna only get 1 question, it would be nice if they cover the spectrum.
I think what he's saying, it makes sense there, that if we send it in that way, I could both look for duplicates, I could let everybody know what the starting question is, but I don't think there would be any stipulation against not changing a question.
Well, if I had a question to ask and Dan already asked it, I would know it was a duplicate and I would ask something else.
As long as you're prepared with a follow-up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So, did you have a specific suggestion there?
No, I don't think we need to
So basically, we let people come with questions, and if somebody asks.
I would like more spontaneity as well as transparency.
Okay, that's fine with me, there's less work for me. Okay.
But it's still gonna be limited to 1 per member?
I think so, with 5 applicants and 6 council members, even at.
One question per candidate?
No, you can ask it to all of, I mean, the question can go to all of them.
Oh, I don't like that.
No, I don't
That
like that
feels
either.
very limiting.
No, I don't like that at all.
So, this is an open process to do it. We just want to be up front on how we do
So,
it.
yeah, I would say,
What's your idea?
suggest what you would like.
Go ahead.
Well, I would just like somebody that lives in El Granada has got different feelings about, than somebody that lives in Montera. So, I mean.
I'm just asking for guidelines, right? I mean, so,
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I would feel more comfortable if I knew, if I'm limited to one question for 5 people.
I think,
well.
I mean, I may just have one question, I don't know, but I can't. And-
Yeah, the questions may also be based on what the candidates say. Like, we want to be able to hear their statements and be able to ask
Yeah.
more detailed questions on
Yeah.
those statements.
Well, we could also work with, let's say we wanted to take a half hour in the question process, just
Mhm.
for a number. That basically then each person could ask a question to one or more applicants as they wanted to, and continue to go around the council until we ran out of time.
Mhm.
I like
Is
that
that-
better.
that's better.
Yeah, I like that better.
Okay,
That's fine, I would suggest more like an hour
Yeah.
well, let's see.
based on past experience.
What
half an hour
about
is
time
not
for the
bad.
opening comment?
We've limited people to 3 and 5 minutes in the past, and 3 has been really tight. 5 with 5 candidates is getting a little long, but I think 4 or 5 minutes for an opening
Okay,
statement.
so
I think the last time we did this, and which I would not hold up as a model of anything,
Yeah, so the last time, I will admit, my process was bad.
well, mine was bad. But I think I told everybody they could talk as long as they wanted, and kind of gave them a guideline as to what the evening was going to consist of, and everybody did it really well. Everybody, and that was kind of a test in a way, is to see, you know, do they have a way of organizing themselves and respecting limits and stuff, and they did. I thought that was good.
What did not work well was
The voting.
Okay,
process.
Yeah,
So
we're getting
I think
to-
we need
hold it,
to
we're getting to
have
the
a
voting.
written, excuse me, I'm just,
No,
can I just
we're not
express
talking
what I'm
about that
saying?
yet. No, I'm trying to get, this is our questioning, discussion with the applicants. Voting comes next. Thank you.
Yeah, question on that though, on the overall agenda for that week, I know the future agendas is the next topic, but are we gonna have other agenda items in addition to this?
Only item that was sitting there proposed for that was the Harbor District. That would be the Harbor District Manager coming to speak about that. I spoke with him today. I mean, I don't necessarily, that's not in depth, so that would typically be a 15 to 20 or 25-minute item.
Yeah, I would propose that we keep this as the only topic on the agenda.
Is that the only item?
That's what I would propose.
Okay.
I would like you to add the park, though. It would just be a brief,
Okay.
in case I have to ask for,
No.
we pay for T-shirts or something.
Sure. Okay, we'll not have something that's a major item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a
And
big
then
one.
other things come up that seem important to drop in that are quick. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so what I hear is we want to use the time for an open discussion. I think, you know, I'll tell you what, we'll set the opening comments at 4 minutes. We'll sort of determine how many total minutes we want to allow, given time available in the meeting.
Well, we should
Probably move
determine
to a
that
vote.
tonight, I think. For council questions?
Yeah, let's say there's 45 minutes for council questions.
Yeah, I think 45 is good, because if we have 4 minutes and 5 candidates, that's 20 minutes plus 45, it's already over an hour,
Mhm.
plus everything else that we do in the meetings,
Okay.
plus voting, depending on how many rounds that
So-
takes.
So let me outline my proposal for voting. It's very specific. Would basically vote with each council member having 2 votes, a first place vote and a second place vote. After the first round of voting, if any one applicant gets 4 votes, then they're in.
For either, so each
If
first and
one
second are
applicant
weighted
gets
equally?
4 first place votes.
Okay,
One applicant gets 4 first place votes, they're in. If we don't have any applicant getting 4 first place votes, we use the second plate votes to come to totals for each candidate and reduce it to 2 applicants,
So first is worth what, how much, and second is worth how much?
just 1 and 2. 2 points for first place, 1 point for second place, okay?
And we reduce it to 2 applicants, you said? Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna have it, almost certainly gonna have a tie, so you're probably gonna, so,
Well-
let me just rephrase, let me back up. So last time I invented the rank method on the fly, and it was a real botch.
Can I just finish mine and then
Yeah.
critique it? Okay. I don't necessarily know we would come up with a third place tie, but I'm assuming we would not. But basically with the 2 applicants, then we would have another round of voting, and I would recuse myself. So ultimately, we would have to have a not tie.
But we had 3 rounds of ties last
I
night.
know, but we had multiple ways to get there, so the only the only consideration that comes up here is if we had a tie among the first 3 in some place, but it's not eliminated. And in that case, you probably have to repeat the process.
Well, my comment was basically, write down the method that you're going to use for ranked choice voting and send it, and we'll put it in the agenda.
Okay.
Because it was, I watched it last time, and there's many ways to do ranked choice voting, and we should just look at it and see, yes, if we think there's gonna be a lot of ties or not.
Are these written votes?
They read it on a sheet of paper.
Okay.
And we
So
did
maybe
them
we
out
can
loud.
do.
Yeah, we did them out
So-
loud.
so
We did them out
for the
That's
applicants
transparency.
who are here, and also those who watch on video, because of the Brown Act, the vote is a public vote.
Yeah,
And that makes it very difficult for the council members. It makes it very difficult for the applicants, but that's the way it is.
Sure, we could write them down. Do the votes need to be identified to the individuals
Yes.
on the council who
Yes.
voted for this?
mhm.
All votes
Okay.
are public votes.
Okay,
Okay?
so we could still write it down and then
Oh, yeah.
Len could read them all
Yeah,
and say
yeah,
who
sure.
did them.
Yeah, you can do it.
So we
either
have a
way.
form where we have our name, our first choice, our second choice.
Is this whole process gonna be written down? on a
That's what I
document?
was just asking for
Right.
you.
Okay.
No, this was the first
And
draft,
what-
taking
and
in
what-
comments.
The voting process,
Yes.
just by itself? voting
Yes.
process.
Absolutely. It must be
Documented.
written down.
And how long, when do you expect that to be?
I plan to send it out tomorrow.
Okay.
And
And you're-
attach
and-
it to the agenda as well.
And you're sending us the applications?
Yeah, it's also go out tonight.
Okay.
Can I ask that anything that you correspond with the applicants on, that you copy the council on?
Yeah. Okay, any other comments?
Why is Lisa on here?
Okay.
Sorry, just one more clarification on
Sure.
this. So if we don't, if at least 4 people don't choose one person, that means that we're definitely we're doing the combination of first and second choice and
Right.
giving, so first choice gets 2 points, so that's like 6 people times 2, that's 12. Second choice gets 1 point, so that's 6, so it's 18 total points shared. And then we're gonna take the top 2, assuming there's not a tie.
Right.
And we're gonna immediately do a second round of voting
Right.
without any conversation, because last time we had conversation in between that.
It's because we were trying to figure out what the
Yeah.
next
I
step
think
was.
it's better just to go with another vote.
Agreed?
And
Yeah.
that would be myself recused and the other 5 members would vote.
So then we just need a plan of what happens if there are 3
Right.
that tie, or all 4.
Give some consideration to that and I'll put it out for the council to
Okay.
review. Okay. Okay, that takes care of this. Now, let's see where is that agenda. Okay. Council activity. Just a quick note, is our permit log up to date?
No, I need to update that.
Okay,
It looks
working on
sweet.
that. I've shared communications I had. I hope to have the task list here to distribute, and let's not get ready. Okay. Any other council activity? I think many of us went to the Seton meetings and went to that. No further comment there. Okay, in going to the future agendas, think what we said is we want to keep the March 25th meeting just to the MCC applicants. And so then we'll review the April agenda when we get to the next meeting.
Before we get there, I think you mentioned that you thought we should talk about whether we should have meetings and stuff like that?
That's what I'm about to do.
Oh, okay, never mind, I'm sorry.
So, our next meeting, I'm expecting with the applicants to have a public meeting, but I would like to set it up to try the technology that would let it run without an audience. That would mean for the next meeting, we would have to have the applicants and ourselves and our camera person there, but nobody else. Now, I'm not proposing to do that unless there's a stipulation that comes in from the county on this. But what I would like to try is to use, in a particular case, I use it, GoToMeeting, which is an application that can allow you to conference in multiple people, project a video image, people can type in notes, you can even record the meeting there. We would have to work with our camera person in terms of getting recording that was appropriate to basically record into GoToMeeting as well as support. We already have a tool to support that.
So the Brown Act, the only way you can have a video-only meeting is if there is public access to teleconference locations, not just a URL. You've got to give them a place they can go to participate with the video.
Really, I have.
Well, I think that the point of this is you can't have having another congregation point with, now, what I have to do besides technically set it up is talk to council on this point, and I would assume council is already besieged with requests to answer questions like that, so I don't think I would be coming afresh to them, but I recognize the point. So.
Yeah, I found a document online that does not state that.
Yeah.
Well-
So, and it also says it has to be at the location where you normally meet, or at least your physical meeting location.
Okay.
And at least one member of the body has to be at that location.
Well,
I think personally that unless things get much, much worse and there are new guidelines put out, that it's much more reasonable to meet in person for the sake of getting anything done, for the sake of the community. Asking people to buy into a whole new technology all of a sudden is just, even if the Brown Act would allow it, I think is unreasonable.
so what are you saying, Claire?
I think we should continue as we are.
Okay. Now, my question is, what happens if the county, since we're a government arm of the county, says not to do that?
They're not going to
Then-
say
Then we
that they can't.
cancel.
Then we can't meet, or
Cancel the
we
No.
follow the direction of the county at that point.
So if the county says no public gatherings whatsoever, then we aren't going to meet.
Yep.
We will cancel our meeting.
Anyways, but I will investigate what the options are. And basically, after 1 week, then I have to send a note to the council to say, here's what I've learned. That's about the best I can do on that point. Okay. Are there anything else? Take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Don, thanks everybody.
Second.